Well, hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome all the audiences we have in for tonight. That'd be for our YouTube audience, Spotify audience, Pandora audience, iHeartRadio audience, our friends over the Comic Crusaders, and also to all of our friends over at the NSC Roadshow. And as I mentioned last show, that the NSC Roadshow turned one last show. So, very big, cool thing there. And our latest two podcasts to join are Critical Blast and Geekosity. So I'd like to go ahead and make sure to welcome them to the NSC Roadshow. And I'm going to go ahead and go over a few things housekeeping wise tonight. First thing I'm going to start off with is just a couple of previews. I'm going to split the previews in half tonight, and half the previews now and half the previews after the interview. And let me go ahead and get started with the first few real quick. The first one right off the bat is you've got a few hours left. Today's the last day for it, so you don't want to miss out on it for sure. Is Tiki Zombie. And Tiki Zombie, it's its 10-year anniversary. This is book 4. And Tiki Zombie was voted one of the projects we love by Kickstarter. So it's a very, they don't just pass those things out. So it's a very cool book. You want to make sure you want to get over there. Like I said, only hours left, maybe 2 or 3 hours left to the book. All kind of cool swag, loads of swag to it. You don't want to miss out on that. And I do want to play real quick the video for Tiki Zombie so you kind of get a feel for a little bit more about the book. Anniversary, so make sure you get a hold of that. Several backers already have grabbed it, and it is about to be gone. You don't want to miss out on all that cool swag. Next up is Spicy Pulp 6, another Justin Gray book there, and that book is just burning up the charts right now, and it's blowing all kind of records out of the water. So you want to make sure you jump over and catch Spicy Pulp 6, and I'll tell you where to find all these here in just 1 second. Make sure you don't miss out on that one. The next one is a little bit different in variety because it is more in a webtoons kind of field. So it's going to be on Patreon, and this is Mara, and you don't want to miss Mara. You get a page a week that comes out, so you can keep up with it and check it out as it comes out. Very cool book there, and we have a video for that one as well. So here is a little bit more about Mara. Really awesome book there. You can find all these and more if you go over to inked.marketing, swing over to the gallery, click the gallery, and there's a drop down right there when everything pops up, and just do the live now. So again, that's inked.marketing. Swing over, look at the gallery section, click live now, and you can see all those and much, much more. We'll be going through the couple more books in the coming soons right after this. So welcome again to the show, everybody. And Brandon has a night off, so I have a special guest co-host tonight, and that is Mr. Rusty Gilligan, and I'm going to like to welcome Rusty to the show. Hello, good sir. Let me unmute him real quick. That's my fault.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Well, hello, sir.
How are you?
Oh, hanging in there. It's been an interesting week, and back in the studio now. I was out and about, but I kind of threw up the background here for a little homage to the Matrix, since we got the next Matrix been announced.
I actually put a sheet over some of my boxes in the background here, because the last time it looked like I was Fred Sanford at the Sanford Junkyard. But so anyway, but
well, you're a working man though. So if you're like me, if you saw the other half of the office, you would see boxes stacked and stuff in disarray. And
If you saw the other half of this studio, you would not worry about what your room looks like. It's from just this here is me and my desk and my computer and everything else. Just off of the side is boxes, piles of books. It literally looks like something out of an apocalypse. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm certainly not.
Oh Lord, no, I know how that goes, but we're going to be going over tonight. Let me swing by and kind of zipping through the board. I got to kind of cut this thing down. I've got way too much on here. Oh, there's the other man of the hour just popped in. Let me bring their slide up and kind of tell everybody what's going on if they didn't see the previews to everything. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. There it is. Tonight, we're going to feature Gary Cohen and Dan Mishkin. And the cool thing about these guys is that they have been friends for 55 years. And that's pretty much a milestone, man. There's a couple of people that I still kind of know and hung out with from middle school. But that's, again, where these guys met. And they both had a common interest as far as what they want to do for a career and knew early on. And have, been in a career together ever since, which has been very, very cool. So we're going to bring them on and talk a little bit about their career. I'm going to talk about a couple things. They're basically, I consider, like I said, the DC powerhouse. And I know both of their works, have samples of both of their works, and have read them from early on. And let me go ahead and pull that off of there. And without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Dan Mishkin and Gary to the show. So let's add them up. All right.
Gary, that's
Gary,
strange.
I was expecting him to be late. What is this picture you're getting of me?
I don't know. What is that?
It looks like some sort of cosmic cheeseburger or something.
Or a close-up of a whale as it's kind of...
like the lower jaw of a dinosaur here.
I tested my camera. Maybe it's choosing the wrong... Because, well, something's happening when I do that.
It's kind of interesting, though.
It is.
And
It's
the flickering makes it look a
camera is
little
not the
eerie
one
as
that
well.
the camera is not the one that I'm using that I tested before. When I entered the broadcast studio, it said this is the webcam we're using, and it said webcam. So I said sure, but
We'll figure it out.
maybe I should have looked for the one that said Microsoft Life Boy or whatever it's called.
Well, we'll figure it out along the way. Trust me, this will be the first of many interesting things as we do live, because we enjoy live. So
I'm kind of jealous.
live
I
is
wish
good.
I looked that good.
We become bumbling old men. And become
You know,
stuttering old fools.
nah. Yeah, we were expecting. Let's see. I mean, you actually made it on time. Yeah, man, cool. I was expecting Gary to be a little bit late.
I was too. Got out a little bit early and came straight away home. Fresh from yoga.
Well, nice. All ready to go and mindset's right and everything. I did yoga a few years ago. I need to get back to it though. I enjoyed it while I did it, but I hadn't done it in probably about 20 years. So
It has rebuilt me several times in my life.
yeah, chiropractors have rebuilt me most of my life, and I need to get into something more natural rather than getting forced around back into shape. I usually train wreck myself and walk in kind of like a crab and twisted to one side as I enter their office.
Now, see, I was going to be daring and comment and say something, but I thought you said yogurt, so never mind.
Oh, there he is.
No, the yogurt was lunch today.
There's the real Dan Mishkin.
Hey,
There we
I
go.
figured it out myself. I re-entered
Awesome.
the thing and I dropped down,
See,
used
not
the drop down to choose the right camera. I
not
don't know.
such a stuttering old fool after all.
No, but I don't know where that other camera is. I'm a little concerned.
No. Well, see,
it's like I'm
See-
not supposed to have any other cameras in here.
I have friends of mine that swear to God that Roombas map your house for the government, and that the Alexa is recording every conversation that you have and playing it back for the CIA. So
Now, you
So
see
maybe-
what's going to happen after we all sign off, Dan. You're going to be like, oh, okay, the show's over. And then another camera will flicker on. And
exactly.
It'll be like in your garage, and there'll be like raccoons running around. And
Kevin,
But there's no regular raccoons.
Kevin, those friends of yours who tell you that, tell them, look, you're more boring than oatmeal. Nobody cares what you're doing. Do whatever the hell you want. And
Exactly.
if it's recorded, who cares?
Yeah.
You're not doing anything.
Yeah. So somebody one time had done something really silly, and they were really embarrassed about it. And then somebody turned to him and said, "Who won Super Bowl II?" And they went, I don't know. They said, okay. So in a little while, everybody's going to forget this too.
And most of the time, no one cares.
Exactly.
The only people who are really going to rag on you are friends and family.
There you go. And you can always count on them for that. So, but yeah, that's
so Gary. I heard that you were going to be late, and I was all prepared to tell the story of the late Gary Cohen.
Dan, I was thinking about that as I was walking back from the yoga place about the late Gary Cohen.
We can close him out, and you can tell the story.
Tell the story, and then I'll tell you.
I was just saying, so Gary was always late for everything, and so you mentioned that Gary and I have known each other for a long, long time. We and our close group of friends like to say we attended different high schools together because we were, two of us went to the same high school. Another two were in two different high schools, but we belonged to the same synagogue, so we were in Hebrew school together. Okay. So, there was one day when there was like teacher conferences at my school, but Gary's school was going to have class, and he said, "Dad, you can come to my school for the day." Okay, that sounds great. That'll be fun. I'll see what Baldwin High School is like, and I get there. And I wait right at the locker that he tells me there's people milling about and, stuff going on. And there's a burst bell rings and people start, going off. And then the vinyl bell rings and the place is empty. The hallway is empty and there is no Gary. And the famous closing line from the Thanksgiving episode of WKRP in Cincinnati, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. My feeling was, as God is my witness, I thought that Gary would at least show up on time for school. That was not the case.
But I did eventually show up, right?
I think so. That's the only memory.
The time I took Fishman to school with me, by the end of the day, we'd gotten me suspended and him banned from the campus forever.
He was actually telling me that story today. He is our friend Fishman, who lived in Valley Stream. I lived in Rockville Center. He lived in Baldwin. That might not mean anything to you, but it will mean something, hopefully, to some of your viewers on the South Shore of Long Island. And Fishman, who's been living in Rhode Island, but his older daughter is about to become a mother for the first time, and so he and his wife have picked up all their stuff. They're on their way driving out to Washington State. So they were here today at my house, which was great. And he told me the whole story of having to evade Mrs. Kloberg.
Yes, Ethel Kloberg, the dean of students.
Kloberg. Oh Lord.
It was movie worthy. I figured something out though, Dan.
Yeah.
That ADD diagnosis that I told you I got about 2 years ago?
Yes.
It explains so much. I mean, the late Gary Cohen, because something would catch my attention. Mm-hmm. And I'd glom onto it, and 3 hours later, oh shit! I was supposed to see the guys.
There was a friend of mine like that in high school. I was always building muscle cars in school, and for whatever reason, my Trans Am was down for a couple days, and so my dad was bringing me to school, but my dad had to leave a little early because he had to go to work early, and I was picking up a friend of mine. I said, "Look, we got to pick up Joey." He's like, "Okay," he said, "but Joey can't be late." Those famous last words, right? So we pull up to the house, and it's like, early in the morning, still pitch black. Joey's bedroom is the very front bedroom. So there's no Joey standing outside. Dad's like, "Look, I'm fixing to leave him because I got to go to work." And Dad kind of pops the lights for a second, and you see this shadow jump up and do the flight of the bumblebee around his room, and his cigarette is hanging straight down. Perfect, always Joey. Her cigarette swinging straight down with his backpack, kind of as he staggered to the car. But I have a few friends that were always perpetually late for everything.
This has it's great explanatory power about a lot of the past 60 years of my life. And if I had known that, if there had been such a diagnosis 50 or 60 years ago,
right,
things might have played out differently. But 2 years ago, I finally said, I'm still having trouble focusing. Let's go. Let's see what's going on. And I took a whole battery test and got a diagnosis at 67 years old.
Well, there you go. At least you know now.
But now I understand why it was always the late Gary Cohen.
Well, see, that was late. The diagnosis was late. See, it all ties
Everything,
together in some cosmic. Yeah.
Yes, the Illuminati had something to do with it.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not late for my own funeral.
I have an aunt that I promise
that would be a
you will
neat trick.
Wouldn't it?
I always said when I pass away, I want somebody to show up dressed in a Grim Reaper costume and say something like in front of everybody, "Oh, I don't think he was supposed to be here. Oh, well," and then walk away.
I want 7 different women in black to show up.
Oh,
all of them stunned to see the other.
Yes.
Hired actresses, of course. Stunned. Who are you? Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Who are you? Where did he hide the money? Yeah. Oh, great.
In my case, my wife would just laugh and say, "Thank God," and walk away.
Well,
Gary and I made a pact, I think, many decades ago, that whichever one of us goes first, the other one would dance on his grave.
well, there you go.
So that's still the plan. If we can still
walk,
put myself erect.
You can roll over it a few times.
Yeah.
I'm telling off myself here as well, but I used to tell my ex-wife all the time when Father's Day, excuse me, sorry about that. We're still kind of off and on fighting smoke up here in Washington. But I used to tell my wife when Father's Day rolled around, I said, I wonder how many Father's Day cards I'm going to get this year.
That's a good one. I like that.
I think my greatest trick is going to be when I pass away, I'm going to make sure that all of my pockets are lined with flower seeds. I'm going to cause the gardener hell for the next 100 years.
There you go.
So,
couple things here. When you guys first, you guys basically entered your careers together at DC, and I'm just telling this, of course, you guys know, but I'm telling this for the listening audience so they can kind of fill in here. But it seems to be your first works were in February and March of 1980, and the artist that accompanied you with this work was Steve Ditko. So I'm sure that was probably interesting to work with a DC version of Steve. So that was around 1980.
Work with is that term's got to be qualified.
Qualified. He assisted you in making a
he
book.
Did not. No. Man, Dan?
Go.
Okay. Dan and I were graduate students in the Department of Popular Culture Studies at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. We had a shared office with 4 other students. Let's see, there was Deb, there was Dan Axe, there was Jimmy, and so 4 or 5 other, and we were all in this big office. We all had our own desks, and Dan and I had adjacent desks. We had also gone to Michigan State together. Dan got accepted to Michigan State. I followed him the next year. I got accepted to Bowling Green. He arrived the next year. So we would banter back and forth and talk about ideas and comics, and because we were going to revolutionize the industry. And Dan took the initiative to start to write letters to various editors at DC and Marvel, trying to convince them to take a look at our stuff. And finally, maybe 1 or 2 of them did, and Jack Harris at DC wrote us back. Seriously, wrote us. This was all letters, right. So it took forever. Wrote us back and said, "I like this one." On the day of his return, "I like this. Can you turn it into a script?" Somehow we figured out how to write a comic book script for a 3-page story. We sent it by mail. He must have had, Ditko must have been around saying, "You got to work for me," which is what artists.
I got you. Okay.
And he said, "Yeah, what about this?" "Yeah, okay." And when he told us that Ditko was the artist, again, probably by mail, but maybe you were talking to him by phone, but I don't think so. we got real excited. Ditko. Oh my God, Ditko is Ditko is one of the gods, and we were very happy with him. It's a wonderful job, but we didn't work with him. Somebody handed him our script.
Gotcha.
He had no idea who we were.
So kind of like voiceover actors, you're never in the same room at the same time. You just happen to trade off.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was the method for a long time, especially with those mystery books. You'd write a full script. It would go into the pile that the editor had of full scripts, and eventually it would end up in the hands of an artist who would draw it.
Yeah. The other thing about making this first sale to Jack, was that he was starting a new book, Time Warp, a new anthology. Even before that, DC had anthology titles, which was a great way to break in at the time. So he had this book, Time Warp. He was willing to send us, here's the kind of story I want, and it's a story where, basically the girl astronaut, and I say girl astronaut in a deliberately sexist way because this is the time we were living in. A girl astronaut is doing her thing when somebody who she trusted turns out to be a monster and eats her. Those are kind of twist endings that I think Jack would probably give a more refined version of that, but it was that kind of story. And so we sent Jack 12 springboards for stories. And he liked one of them. And the one that he liked was the one that was totally in the face of his instructions for what he wanted in a Time Warp story.
Well, sometimes it was not the girl astronaut being eaten by the monster. It was the stranded male astronaut discovering that the weird old guy on this planet or planetoid he's crash landed on, turns out to be Santa Claus and takes him home on his sleigh. Right? Gotcha. So that is nothing like what Jack was asking.
As sappy a story as you could possibly imagine, but sweetly so.
That's right. I think
there it is.
I think plenty of Jewish comic book writers have cut their teeth on Christmas stories. So,
got you.
And Jewish songwriters on Christmas songs.
That's right. Children roasting on an open fire. No.
I stopped myself from starting to sing that, but imagine if I hadn't, and spontaneously we had started to sing that.
That's right. There was a time at Bowling Green, Gary. I guess we were at a conference somewhere. We were out to dinner, and somebody dropped a tray, and it clanged to the ground, to the floor, and we both sprang up and took a boxer stance. And it's like we did not have to communicate that to each other. It just seemed
there
like
you go. Well, are you guys still in the same state, or have y'all moved away, or y'all in different states now? Or
no,
we're both in a state of confusion, but
dazed and confused. See, that's why I have the shirt. So
I live in Michigan and Gary lives in Virginia.
Okay.
I was in New York for 35 years. And what took me to New York in 1980 was DC Comics. We were both in Ohio and then in Michigan. And in the days before the internet, that was very awkward. Mm-hmm. And if there was going to be a career, one of us needed to go to New York. And we were both from New York. But Dan was married to Karen, who was starting her medical career in Michigan. And she wasn't going to go. I was then married to Betsy, who is a Cleveland girl who always wanted to live in New York. So we went to New York.
Right, and because my parents still lived in New York, I'd take the train out like every 6-8 weeks, to show my face, and that worked out. And by the way, in those days, these are the days when long distance calls actually cost you money. Mm-hmm. First of all, DC reimbursed us for our calls to each other.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Because we had these marathon sessions on the phone when we hatched stories and concepts and plots. And Dan always called me, and then he would bill DC for the time.
There you go. Here's a DC book that I first picked up. This is when I first learned of Gary's work. And this is the book Warlords. It's January of 1984, and it's actually the very first comic book that I ever picked up. And I was my father had a lot of medical things going on, a lot of back surgeries and stuff. And I was 10, and we didn't have comic book shops at the time. You see their writer Gary Cohen and then Ron Randall, and Ron was on our last show, so I got a chance to talk to both you guys.
Keep in mind that our story is not the Warlord story.
Right, it's in the back. It's in the Barren Earth story. So I read cover to cover as a kid, and then I reread the Barren Earth story about 2 weeks ago before Ron came on, and I still have the very book that I had when I was 10, and I keep it on the corner of my desk as a reminder of what got me into comics. So
I'll be right back.
Sure.
I'm going to pull something off the wall.
Okay.
While he's doing that, I will tell you that just today, Todd Klein, who's been running on Facebook a series of comic book logos through the alphabet, he was discussing his logo for Conqueror of the Barren Earth, the miniseries that Gary and Ron did.
Yeah.
So he's what do we got here?
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
From Barren Earth, number something or other. But there it is.
Yeah.
Nice. That's beautiful.
So Todd is willing to critique himself as well as others. He doesn't like the fact that the Conqueror of the Barren Earth logo that he did is so arc.
Right. Yeah, that was that conversation on Facebook.
It would, there's a lot of letters in that logo, and
right.
You have to find some solution. So I think he gets a pass on that. And I still enjoyed the story just as much a couple of weeks ago as I did when I was 10. So
good.
That was.
So I'll give you a homework assignment.
Okay.
Read the whole thing from the first 6-page episode to the end of Conqueror of the Barren Earth.
All right.
And let me know if it stands up.
I will do that. I'll definitely
do that. And then call your favorite movie producer.
Really? If only.
Any chance of seeing a collected volume?
I don't think DC even remembers it exists.
You got to keep jabbing them, though.
There's no corporate memory there, because the only person I can think of who is still there, and I'm not sure he's still there, from when we were, is Roger Rivera.
I knew you were going to say Roger, and he's not there anymore.
He's not there anymore. Okay, so who?
Yeah, I get it. A lot of the companies had a lot of turnover over the years. I don't know if it was we put out a great summer vehicle. Oh, it sucked in the ratings. Oh, everybody's gone. Or the editor or the publisher or whatever. And then all of a sudden the whole department's gone.
There's always a lot of turnover. People age out.
Yeah.
And Rusty himself has been in comics for years and was on the first stuff and the cruise and stuff when Heavy Metal came out. So he's been in the game a long time as well.
Rusty, you're a buddy of Bob Sodaro, right?
Yes. Yep, known Bob for a long time. And also someone else I was going to mention to you guys. What was it like working with my friend Paris? I love Paris Cullins. He's such a great guy.
Who does not love Paris Cullins?
Right.
Seriously.
Really, he's the most lovable person on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
He's except for my grandchildren, but so Gary worked more closely because they were living in the same room sometimes while we were working on Blue Devil, and I think Gary, you had to just hold him down and make him keep penciling or something.
Paris and I, there were times when Paris would come and stay in my apartment for 3 or 4 days with me and my wife. Mm-hmm. And he and I, there's a photograph, and I'm trying to figure out if there's a way for me to plug in a photograph here.
You can, if you have it on your computer, you can share your screen, and I can pick it up and put it on here.
Share my screen. Let me find these two. But Paris and I would keep each other laughing hysterically as we worked on Blue Devil. So let's see. Okay, paired 30 years apart. Okay, so here's this, and here's this. I'm going to do it a very stupid way, Kevin. I'm going to give it to you on Facebook in our little messenger chat. I'm going to give you these pictures.
You can do that. You can just do it there, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to hand it over to Rusty because my keyboard went out on my substation. So, sure, just IM it over to me, and I'll send it over to him. We'll make this happen.
So, taken by my wife in 1983 or so is the first one. Taken by my then girlfriend 4 years ago for the second one.
We have some tuning in from Australia right there.
There you go.
Sean Keenan's tuning in. Says, "Good day, mate." He's tuning in from the bottom of the earth. He's tuning in from Australia for us.
So, Rusty, do you have that? Do you see it? There's.
Oh, I got it. And I'm gonna go ahead and send it over to Rusty.
Me in Paris in 1982 or 3, and then me in Paris in 2015 or so.
All right, hold on 1 second here.
All right.
This is not my milieu. When it comes to these things, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't look right.
Well, I was checking everything out right before the show and realized that the wireless keyboard I guess the batteries had gone out. So I'm making do here on the board.
Did that come across?
Yes. Let me get to it real quick.
Okay.
All right. There is the first one.
There we are.
That's what time you said that? How long ago was that?
Probably 1983.
1980. Okay.
Probably 1983. Maybe 82.
Okay.
All right. Let's try this one here.
And I'm going to say this one's 2016. Okay, there we are again.
I'm sorry. It's my fault here. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm not. There we go. Did that come across?
Yeah, that's there. And if you just click on,
it didn't.
Both of them together. So if you just click the other one, if you just move over,
click on the one. Yeah, click on one or the other, and they should.
Yeah, I did, and it didn't go across. Did it come across now? There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
There
Yep.
So there we are. 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Pretty cool. It's nice that everybody still keeps up.
That, by the way, is some of his initial design thinking for New Devil, which is a book that Paris and I have been lying to each other will have done one of these days. But I think we will now. We're passing what's done, which is 85% complete for first issue, to Paris's friend Derwin Roberson, who is a great finisher.
Is it the muscle car that's up on blocks that one day you're going to finish, or the motorcycle that still needs a little bit of work?
The private project.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, when it comes to go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that I was I just went and found again Todd's comments on his Conqueror of the Barren Earth logo, and I just shared that screen.
I was part of that exchange too.
So now I'm allowing you to.
How have I lost you? I've somehow lost this. Let's see. Click back on StreamYard. I'm entering the broadcast studio again. There I am again, entering the studio again.
Whoop, now you're double.
Close the first window, Gary.
I'll be right back.
That was the disco era.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I wanted Gary to see this, but I guess he
should be back here momentarily.
Yeah, and he can comment on. Maybe he already did see this. Gary spends way too much time on Facebook, even more than I do. Eric Larson says.
Yeah, I
There's
just
an awful lot of letters in it.
said everything because I couldn't find that. Yeah, so I have some comments in there.
Yeah. Should we have made it longer? Rise of the Conqueror of the Barren Earth, maybe? Says Gary. Followed, of course, by Reign of the Conqueror of the Barren Earth, and finally, Fall of the Conqueror of the Barren Earth. Pretty good, Gary.
It's interesting how, like, I'm also, like I said, I mentioned it a lot with cars and still do. And I got a chance to meet the initial designers of Trans Am and all that became the Phoenix on the hood and all that kind of stuff. And it was funny because Bill Davis said that that was his project for the day. He never knew that it would become some sort of pop icon and hold up all of these years. It was just whatever was in front of him at the time. And I think the same thing holds true a lot of times when comics are put together. It's what you're doing at the time. And the longevity, of course, whatever stands out, you learn as you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating to me that although Gary and I don't share in either creative or very much monetary satisfaction from this, that both Amethyst and Blue Devil continue to have people who are, real fans and really want to see more. And would like to see that collection, even more than they want to see a collection of the Conqueror of the Barren Earth.
Have you guys ever thought about maybe gathering those IPs back up and maybe doing some indie work together and producing some more work? Or no way?
DC would never part with them, even if we could afford to make them an offer.
No.
Is it kind of like the Indiana Jones scene when the Ark is being pushed to the back of the room and it's amongst millions of boxes? There's your creations are in some file somewhere and will never see the light of day.
But they do see the light of day.
I meant rebirth. I guess.
Oh no, they cherry pick. For instance, some semblance of Blue Devil showed up in the Swamp Thing TV show.
True.
A much more accurate. The Dan Cassidy was much closer to the comic book Dan Cassidy than the Blue Devil was to the comic book Blue Devil, but it was still, somebody sorted through stuff. And in one of the two of the Berlanti shows, I think Green Arrow rather, there were two Easter eggs in different seasons about Blue Devil movies. There was the Blue Devil movie poster, and then there was the Return of Blue Devil movie poster.
Now you can mark it down.
Barry and Iris were leaving a movie theater that had Blue Devil 2 on the marquee.
And then there was the Blue Devil 1 on the bus, on the side of a bus. Yeah. Was that in Flash or Green Arrow? I think it was Flash.
I think that was in Green Arrow.
Okay.
I hear a lot of resurgence talk about Blue Devil, so I'm going to do the old Johnny Carson as Karnak and put the envelope to my head and say I think Blue Devil may make an appearance in a future DC film. So
that
would be nice.
It just seems to be there's just a lot of talk on the in different circles about Blue Devil still. So
it's funny because being someone that read and loved the title, I always thought to myself it was very fluid. From issue 1 all the way through to that first series, it felt like it was a movie broken into episodes. It had that serial squadron type fashion to it. So I applaud you guys for doing something like that, especially back then, because that and your Amethyst title was amazing compared to some of the other titles that were around at the time. Not knocking anybody else, but they were very motion picture fluid.
We had Blue Devil planned out very, very, at least the first 12 issues before the first one came out. And, of course, we ran into a snag because Paris was finished. I think Ernie did all of issue 6, or did he finish Paris?
No, Paris. I mean, Paris at least laid it out.
Okay, and Ernie finished issue 6, and then Paris wasn't on the book anymore, and we went through an issue of Gil Kane, which was wonderful, Gil Kane, but it wasn't the same thing. Then 2 issues of Keith Giffen, which were terrific, but it wasn't really Blue Devil as it was supposed to be. Then an issue of Mike Chen, who was did a beautiful job, but kind of felt like he just didn't want to do be under the gun of doing them. He was slated to be the next regular artist, and he just didn't feel like he wanted to be under the gun to turn out a monthly issue. And we ended up with Alan Kupperberg. And Alan had many strengths, but he did not love the property. He was on record as saying he did not love the property. It was just something he picked up because it was a gig. He had particular focuses that were different from what we had planned, and we kind of started to accommodate that rather than the momentum kind of thing. And his action was not what Paris's action was. What made those first 6 issues and the Summer Fun Annual was Paris's dynamic, explosive, constant motion.
Right.
And his stuff does not sit on the page.
His sequential style just stands out.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Paris was a sculptor. That's the way I told him that a couple of times. You're a sculptor, buddy. You're not a penciler anymore.
So then we start to try to accommodate Alan's interest in I Love Lucy. And things like that, and so.
But bear in mind, we raised I Love Lucy in issue 6.
Well, okay,
So,
but it was a toss.
But Alan liked comedy in a way that was different from what Blue Devil really was.
Blue Devil had a dynamic. It was a really interesting balance of dynamic action and silliness. Right. And probably when we were doing it with Paris, it was weighted more toward dynamic action.
Right.
And once we had Alan on it, it went to silliness.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point when I was not right in the head, I guess, we separated, and I think we made a bad choice because I took Amethyst, Dan took Blue Devil. I kind of think we should have been the other way, but
yeah, it's hard to say.
In any event, the strengths that we brought as a united, we're pretty different. As a united, two-headed writer, was gone, and I really think that in writing, for the 10 issues I did Amethyst, and then for the next 20 issues, Dan did Blue Devil.
I can't even remember, Gary, because there were times when we would call each other.
Absolutely.
Talk about this stuff. But,
yeah. But you can see that we're not firing on all cylinders on both books.
Right. Was that something of your choosing to be a duality, or was that a DC thing? Because I know I talked to Justin Gray a lot. Justin and Palmiato both did that duality, role a lot in as well. So I didn't know if that was where that came from. They both did Jonah Hex, right?
I blame myself. It may be too harsh, but I think both Paris and I had I don't know if character flaws, personality issues that spilled over into relationship issues, which then spilled over into professional issues, and I never understood in my 30s that professionalism must come first.
Yeah,
and I didn't understand that. And I let everything else derail me. And at some point, people at DC saw that. And I think, I don't remember which editor, it might have been Karen, it might have been Alan Gold, suggested that we go our separate ways because it wasn't clicking anymore, and it was me. It was really me. So...
Well, what was it? One of you or both of you that had some Jonah Hex? No, that had some Jonah Hex work.
We did Tejano with Tom Yates and Jonah Hex, and that was like
was it in Jonah Hex or Weird Western? I can't remember.
He was backup of Jonah Hex for like 7 episodes, and we were very, very influenced by Jack Jackson's Texas history stuff.
Because I have those issues as well. That's why I asked, because I was a big Jonah Hex fan, so I still have those issues.
That's earlier. That's pre-Blue Devil.
Yeah,
it's even pre-OMAC.
Okay. Because most of the stuff you guys
about OMAC and about how so we took over the backup OMAC series.
Yeah, we were going to fix it.
Well, no, we took it over from Jim Starlin, and you know, Jim Starlin is fantastic. He is, and he's such a talented artist writer. He's done so much great stuff. He also, like a whole lot of us, have our, we have our little things, our stories that we want to tell, even if it doesn't quite fit the character we've just been handed to work on. And Jim does these great books, the ones that he's created, that have this kind of motley group of people, adventurers surrounding the main hero, right? You know, Dreadstar, you know, his Galaxy of the Guardians. No, I don't think that's what it was called. And he decided to do the same thing with OMAC. And Gary and I take over the book. And we're thinking, wait, isn't he called One Man Army Corps?
But there's a lot in.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when Keith Giffen took over Amethyst, and he was really obsessed with DC's Lords of Order and Chaos stuff. Yeah. And I think he imposed that in a way that didn't really fit the character. So on the other hand, as Gary was saying, working with Keith on those 2 issues of Blue Devil were great. I mean, Keith called me up and he said, if I can start the fight scene where you want it to start on page 8 and have it end the way you want it to end on page 15, is it okay if I just do it however I want? And my answer was, I probably consulted you, but you know, my answer was sure, you do this stuff, you know. Yeah. And so there was a rubber chicken in there that I don't think either one of us had to put in, but it was great, you know. It was just delightful. Keep, you know, pulling out all the stops kind of stuff.
So let me tell you something. Twice at conventions now, this has happened. I'm on the floor and somebody looks at me and they recognize me and they come up to me and I say to them, "Who do you think I am?"
Yeah.
Oh, they think you're Jim.
No, I'm not. Or the second time, now we never looked alike. Totally different looking people 30 years ago, but now very strong similarity. Are you Chris Claremont?
That's right. Yeah.
Do you take their book and sign it anyway and hand it to them and say, "Thank you very much"?
You know, I remember when Starlin was away from his table, I joked to his people, "How about if I just sit here for a while and sign books?"
That's great.
I remember, Gary, the first Chicago Con we went to as professionals, and we got the professional badge, you know, and you could see that it was a professional badge, but you didn't necessarily see the name. You had to kind of walk up to see who this person was. And Gary and I are standing together, got our professional bandage on. Some teenager guy, you know, comes up, sees we're professionals. He looks at her names. He goes,
there's a friend of mine that owns a comic shop that was telling me a story. He was at either Chicago or the New York one, I don't remember which one, many years ago. And this is back when he had a bad experience with this particular person. I won't name names, but he had a bad experience the year before. And he walks up and he sees this particular individual talking with a friend of his. And as he walks up, the guy says, "Oh, no, thanks. I'm not signing anything right now." He goes, "Oh, no. I'm not here for you. I'm here for him." And he hands the book to the friend of his, and the book they make eye contact, and he signs his book and hands it back to him. So leaves the other guy dumbfounded as he walks away, but didn't give him the time of day. You know, it was a kind of the payback for him getting snubbed before. But I got I was walking around 2 or 3 years ago, the Denver Comic Con, and which they call the Denver Pop Culture Con now. And I was there to talk with Flash Gordon, which is the poster you see up beside me here. I had my original 1980s Flash Gordon poster to be signed. Sam's just larger than life. It was very nice and very humble, and signed it and said, hey, can I get my co-star to sign this with me? And I said, she's here. And my wife and I are the last two people, and the crowd kind of cleared away, and she was beside him. He said, let me take it over. So he takes my poster and carries it over, gets her to sign it, and then just kind of takes over. Hey, let's take pictures, and you get here and come over here, and let's all do this. And just, it's but the other person I met over there was Neil Adams. And this is the classic story for me. You walk by and, you see the guy about my age with the classic Batman T-shirt on, right? The yellow puffy Batman logo, which was the first, of course, movie logo that came out. And I stop him. I said, hey, I said, I know he's an artist alley, but how far back is Neil Adams? And he goes, who? I said, you're wearing the shirt, man. How do you not know? You're at a comic convention. You have a Batman shirt on. You don't know who Neil Adams is. He's like, no. I was like, hope you have good luck trying to get back to your house. Take care.
With Adams, just look for the biggest setup in Artist Alley.
I found that out. He was a corner office.
Yeah. Nice guy, but he has one table for his ego, and then one table for all his artwork, and then 15 other tables just to shake hands and say hello.
I need to give this cat a snack.
When I was 15 years old and went to one of the early Phil Sewing New York cons in Manhattan, I was in the audience or going in to see a panel, and there's Neil Adams sitting there in the audience too. And I went over to him and I said, Mr. Adams, could you draw me a picture of Dead Man? And he said, sure. You got a sketchbook? No. and he says, that's okay. He went ahead and he did. Oh, actually, it's on my wall behind me. Hang on a second. You can't see it. I might not be able to reach it. But so this would be 1968.
Wow.
He took out his sketchbook, and he did. He did this for me. Hold it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Classic.
Genuine original Neil Adams, off the cuff to a 15-year-old kid who didn't even have his own sketchbook to hand to him to draw, and it didn't cost me a cent.
The one thing I'll say about Adams is I love his shading. He just has a classic way of shading.
Yeah.
He has a great style, especially back then. But I loved his method of shading. It's just a treat. You could always pick it out.
Well, he was definitely on my bucket list again, as was Sam and as was Stan Lee a couple years prior to that. But I actually got a Stan Lee signed book when Stan Lee could actually still was not legally blind yet. It could actually still make out his signature. But with Adams, I got a chance to get a leg up. I was told the best way to approach him to get the very good experience. So I kind of had the inside track on that. I had a very good visit with him. Talked to him for several minutes, and got several things signed and pictures and everything. So I lucked out there.
We were both guests at Wizard maybe about 5 years ago, and they called up and they said that they're going to be doing a Marvel panel. Now, I worked on the Captain America First Avenger movie, and they said, would you be interested in jumping in? And I said, sure. So I had nobody to sit at my table. So I have a little bit of a problem walking lately, especially. So I was in a wheelchair. That was their way of getting me there. So I got there like full police escort. There's all these Wizard guys in shirts and like the badges, and they're like blowing whistles, and it's like whatever. So I'm sitting there making fun, and I'm going, pregnant lady coming through, and then they're all dying. So I passed by Adam's table and I said, hey, how you doing? And he goes, okay. And he goes, hey, I know you. And I said, well, you should. I said, we did, all these shows together and on and on and on. So I get up to the panel room and I'm sitting on the side, and he's actually there as well, sitting like off to the side with guys around him. And he goes, hey, there you are again. And I said, yeah, I couldn't pass up this panel. So they had a couple of the actors on the stage, and they had a couple of the different people from whatever. You know how shows go. They grab everybody around the name. And I said to him, I said, how come you're not up there? And he says, nah, I just want to watch. Oh, okay. So I guess he thought I was an audience member too. And then they go, okay, it's time. You got to come up. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got up and I went back got on the stage. And when I got up there, I said, hey, everybody, wouldn't you like to see Neil Adams on the stage? And he just looked at me like I took the last piece of toilet paper, and he was so mad. They got him up there. I folded. I just let him talk, and I commented on what I did on the film. But they got him up there, and the whole panel turned into, it went from one to the other. When it was over with, I completely avoided his gaze, got in the chair, told my wife, I said, go to the other elevator. Make sure that we don't cross paths again the whole show. And then like a year later, I saw him at this ice show in Pennsylvania. And he was like, great trick. Don't ever do it again.
So this is probably a mean thing to do, because I'm going to tell you about something and not then actually describe it. But Neil told the best story at Dick Giordano's memorial service.
Oh,
it was, and he told it really well. And if you knew Dick, it was just perfect. And I'm sorry I can't tell. First of all, I couldn't tell it the way Neil told it. It would take too long. But there's, you see people. I mean, Gary and I both were taught by and knew like Harlan Ellison, who would get a bad rap for being, an egotist and a meanie and all of these things. But that's not the whole picture.
No.
Do you know, Dan?
Yes.
I read someplace that late in life, Harlan got a diagnosis of being bipolar.
Really?
Which,
that's
again,
interesting.
explains a lot, right?
Right.
It's
I
interesting.
can tell you a Harlan Ellison story, though, if you're interested.
Sure.
I pitched a story. I think it might have been Flash or Kid Flash or something, a mini series or who the hell knows what. I don't remember anything about
So many pitches.
Okay? I pitched it to Bob Greenberg at DC. And it's a good thing that I pitched it to somebody at DC because they own the character. But I called Bob. He said, it sounds good, but you should know that Harlan Ellison was talking to one of the editors about a story possibility that has, some similarities to what you're talking about. So I said, that's okay. I'll just get in touch with Harlan, make sure that we know where everything stands. And as Gary was saying before, these are wrote letters.
Right.
But so I write Harlan a letter, and I swear to God, I sent that letter out from Michigan on a Friday afternoon. And he called me from LA Monday morning, LA time.
Wow.
I don't know what superpower he had over the mails, but there he is. He says, Mishkin, you are a comic book writer. I am but a dilettante in this industry. You are the one who should write a story. If they are going to do a story on this theme, on whatever the hell it was, he says, it should be you. It should not be me. I want you to know that, and that is what I'm going to tell them.
Wow.
And that was a real, that was a solid, that was a lot of generosity. As it turns out, they did neither story, but Harlan's, generosity of spirit was on full display, and it's what I remember.
Well, it's interesting to see a lot of the interactions across, and even across titles that people have, and sharing and doing and growing like that. Do you guys have amongst yourselves? Do you have maybe a favorite story or favorite title that you guys worked on together that really kind of, after all this time, really kind of stands out and it's what you hold near and dear?
I do.
Okay.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Blue Devil Summer Fun Annual.
Oh yeah, that was really, really good. I have to say, and this is like totally my fault. Okay, I have to say, except for the first 3 pages. The problem with the first 3 pages is that I got it in my head, and our editor agreed that it would be a good idea to write a full script instead of doing it plot style. And Paris drew those pages like a caged animal. He was not going to be bound by Mishkin and Cohen's,
Get that
whatever.
copy out of the way.
So it was. So we dropped that right away. So okay, let's turn it into a plot. It was wonderful.
It's still a nice sequence with the guy running and Man-Bat pursuing, and it's still
But it's got the wild angles that you don't really need.
Always start with action,
Yes.
right? Start with somebody running from something, and then we'll get to who it is and why it is and all that. But start with the guy running, and Man-Bat after him.
Yeah, that was a terrific story. I'm not sure if I can pick out one. I mean both the work on the early Blue Devil and the Summer Fun Annual and the original maxi series of Amethyst were just outstanding, and part of it is, I think, especially with Amethyst, it's not like we weren't fully cooperating on Blue Devil. We were, but as I said, with Gary and Paris, who were in the room a lot, on Amethyst, we were like sharing a brain. And
yes,
that experience was just phenomenal, and then to have it happen with Ernie, I mean, oh my God, Ernie was phenomenal. Ernie was incomparable. I'm actually just a little bit misty about this. You want to know something? Ernie and I, before his death, were talking about, he was interested in going back to doing more kid-oriented stuff, which is something that I'm really interested in. We were talking about an idea he had, and we couldn't make it click together. Either I was trying to do too much with it, more with it than he really wanted, or not the right direction. It didn't come together, which is fine. These things happen. I, later on, had a vague idea for a graphic novel, which I'm still trying to get the pieces put together. And about 2 months after Ernie died, the main pieces of this story clicked in my head. And the first thing I thought was, oh, I got to call Ernie. Because he was the guy to draw that, and I'm talking to my agent, who of his clients, would be good for this and all of that, but it's hard to get my head outside of the notion that Ernie should be drawing it, because he contributes so much. I mean, in Amethyst, the faces, right? The Dark Opal's clasp that always mirrored Opal's facial expression.
Can I step away to pull a couple more things off the wall?
Sure.
I have
by all means,
gallery.
And there's I'm going to look for something else that I will try to share with you. Oh no, I shouldn't have done that. Let me try that again. This is live, not television, folks.
That's what I tell everybody all the time. It's
So let me give this a little preamble. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me give this a little preamble. Before we even knew what Amethyst was going to be, we had talked with Ernie about it. We all brainstormed together, and then he gave this to me and Dan. Just his brainstorming about things that might go into Amethyst.
Oh, beautiful.
wow.
Yeah.
The little bird generals down in the right. See, they're good. And the guy on the flying machine, and then the monster grabbing the little girl. And this is Ernie thinking on paper.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then handing it to us and saying, "Can you do anything with any of this stuff?" Yeah. Can we? Yes. Please, thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask you if you could take that. So this is a friend of mine did this post on his website about a page from Amethyst #2, and he points out, first of all, you'll notice there's a lot of writing on this page, which doesn't usually happen anymore. And I was with Amethyst and Blue Devil, I was the first pass at dialogue on Amethyst. Gary was the first pass at dialogue on Blue Devil. And so my friend Jersey takes this page and he says, now look at what's going on with the ballooning here. It flows wonderfully, and I'll take a little credit, but I'll give most of the credit to Len Wein, who taught me how to balloon comic pages. And it just, where the eye is supposed to go throughout the whole thing, right? And that's interesting too. But here was the most interesting thing, which I swear to God, I was not thinking of when I was writing the first draft of the dialogue and doing the balloon spots for this page. Panel 2, okay, all this dialogue in panel 1, dialogue in panel 2, from Citrina. Branch responds in panel 3. Citrina responds back in panel 2, even though Branch has been talking in panel 3. And then we continue to panel 4, and then we've got the dialogue going down to panel 5, which is the same panel that was panel 3. And this is like pure comics. I mean, you were saying something about the Barren Earth being like a movie, and I understand the way that's intended, and is probably right in the serial sense and all of that. I really don't like when people praise a comic by calling it cinematic, right? Because cinema and comics are two different storytelling mediums.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
And
do this.
you cannot do this in a movie, right? You
Now
don't have the freedom to run and jump and backtrack and do this in a way that moves the reader's eye exactly where and exactly when you want the reader's eye to move.
You've basically established sequential ballooning now, not just sequential art, but like you said, the flow all matches everything.
Balloons are art. They are part of the art.
Yes.
They have to be, right? And it's a good thing they got this right the first time, because this was before the days of Photoshop, when you can float the balloons on a separate layer, which is great. I think actually the same friend who did this post about the Amethyst page worked with Ernie and me on our book about the Kennedy assassination, our comics documentary, the Warren Commission report, a graphic investigation, something like that. I'm pretty sure I was going to say something in follow up to that, but I'm an old guy now and I don't always remember where my sentences were going.
About Jersey having worked with you.
Yeah, right. So, yeah.
And probably about Jersey kind of really loved Ernie's stuff. Just
Yeah. Well, he called working with Ernie a master class. But the thing is, when Jersey also did the lettering on the Warren Report book, and I told him at the time, and he also drew some pages that Ernie inked. And I told him then, and I repeat this to him sometimes when we're working on stuff. I say, if I tell you to do something in the art that can't be done, that you know can't be done, don't assume that I have some secret knowledge because you loved the work that I did when you were a teenager, right? Don't assume that at all. I am an idiot. I think Photoshop can do everything. I am like the client who says to the real estate company designer to say, can you show me the house, from the other side? So you mean like flopped? So no, can you show the back of the house? So, no, I don't have a picture of the back of the house. That is impossible to do in Photoshop. So
I had a real estate lady sell a house one time for me that all she showed was the front door, and I called and complained. I said, "It's a 5,000 square foot house. It fills up. You shot the front door. That's what you gave me."
Right, that's no good. But so I did have to tell Jersey that if I tell him to do something in the art and he knows it's impossible, assume I'm an idiot and tell me, instead of wasting his time trying to figure out what I really meant.
Exactly.
I'm not an artist, and I always want to give the artist the job of doing the art.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with somebody who's such a good artist, I know that they can visualize things that are so far beyond my conception of it that I just want to kind of give them an idea.
Well,
yeah.
Barry Dutter,
and let them go. And
I think Barry Dutter said it best one time when he said that he decided to go the way of the writer because he could crank out more work as a writer than the artist could because it took so long to pencil it. Barry Dutter. Barry Dutter worked over at Marvel right before they became cinematic, so to speak, and they almost lost their shirt and split between the comic and the movie industry part. This was right before the first Spider-Man came out and the whole Sony thing. So about that time period, he was working over at Marvel, and he was the half of Marvel that got dismissed when they had to balance the books to get the movie part of it going. So he worked there for a while. Yeah, that's the story he had told was that he decided to go the writing route because of the amount of work and you could work with multiple artists at a time and on multiple IPs, whereas an artist you were hung to one book.
I never had to make that decision. Never had the art side of it. I've always really envied. Here's a Cohen maxim: artists can fake writing better than writers can fake art.
That's a good one.
I like
that.
that.
That's a good one.
And there are an awful lot of artists who have faked writing. But every once in a while, you find somebody who really can do both. And they are the whole show. Yeah. And then they can do anything. They can do whatever they want to do, and it's going to be good. And it's going to be theirs. And they don't need my problem with all the many things that I've got sitting as proposals is I need artists. And I can't say to an artist, unless it's a bosom buddy like Paris, let's put together something on spec. Because my effort to do my contribution to that took 7 hours. And their contribution to that is going to take 7 weeks.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I can do that speculative thing, and it's not a whole lot of skin off my ass. Yeah. But an artist is giving up all this paid stuff they could do on speculation. So it's really hard to get artists to do something that's going to be a proposal.
It is.
Pages of sample art.
I learned that early on. I became a professional artist at 16, and learned very early on in the business how that worked, and then went into the ad agency side more than the comic side. And then, of course, then you have to be like you said, the duality. You have to create the ad and come up with the catch lines. So I became more of a catch line, couple of paragraph kind of writer to catch the attention, and that kind of transferred into doing radio commercials. So, the whole, I think you guys are the ones to me that have the gift, because you have the whole ball of wax to write out the entire story. Whereas I'm more of I can do the artwork, but I'm the catchphrase guy. I do the tagline and a little bit to follow after it.
I understand that writers are considered primary in comics now.
I thought you were going to say that writers are a cowardly and superstitious lot.
most definitely. But I don't see it. Yeah, the idea is great, but at best it's a partnership, and yet the heavy lifting is done by the artist. But as you see with Ernie, and you see with Paris, and you see with Ron Randall, their contribution to the final project is not just, can you draw up my great ideas?
Well, I contributed to a rock band these days. The artist is the lead singer, the writer is the lead guitarist, and the inker and the letterer kind of fight for bass guitarist. That's kind of seems to be the arrangement that tends to be out there.
Yeah, I wanted to. Oh, here it is. I have another piece of art I'm going to show you. Just talking about somebody who.
Well, Dan does that. I'm going to.
Although he won't do anything on spec with me anymore, because we never make any money. This is Tom Mandrake from an issue of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was exactly where I was about to go, because that's where I know your work is from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So it was so much fun.
I mean, mostly I did it with Jan Durzema, but Tom, this is actually the first thing that Tom and I ever did together.
Nice.
Jan and Tom are married to each other. You may or may not know that. And Jan needed a little bit of a break, and Tom said, well, you pick it up, and the editor said fine. So I did a one-shot story. We were usually doing 4-issue arcs.
But then you picked it up for several more after that, right? You carried it for several years.
Oh yeah, right. No, yeah. I was writing. Michael Fleischer did the first 4 issues, right. And then for whatever reason was not doing it. He came up with the characters, but then I did until like issue 30 something.
What was that then?
We're talking about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, okay.
And then of course my wife knows your work from
with Jan, but when she needed a break, Tom did this one shot, and it was just great. And it was like I was saying with Keith on that issue of Blue Devil when he just do the fight scene. There's a scene in this issue of AD&D where our dwarf character, I won't even go into it. He has to go through some weird adventure-y, questy, mystical, fantastical, whatever thing. And Tom basically said, leave it to me, and so when I'm writing plots for Tom, I write the loosest plots I ever write, because I just completely trust him, and he just goes with it, and he's wonderful. This was actually a great story, and then we did our mini series that made us no money called Creeps for Image. But it was really good. I reread it and I said, I knew that Tom's art was going to hold up, but I think my writing holds up too, Actually, this takes me back to Gary, what you were saying about artists and writers and who can do what, and dope will get you through times of no money better than money will get you through times of no dope. No, sorry, that's the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. You were talking about fake art. See, I make a joke and then I forget what I'm talking about.
Well, no, and I remembered your work from there, and I also remembered your work from. Well, my wife picked up when you worked from Wonder Woman. So we
Oh,
both knew the different timelines and different storylines.
My Wonder Woman still gets people. I mean, people ask me if that's ever going to be collected, and I say, "Are you effing kidding me?" I mean, that's not going to happen. But
we'll talk about the works that you won't ever think will be collected, and we'll jump back to Gary for a second, because he probably never knew back when he was doing it that the first couple of, I know you're gonna hate me now, aren't you? But it's popular. It's sought after.
I know.
And he knows where I'm going with this. Is the mini comics that came out with He-Man.
Yeah.
And that was the first, one to six or 8 or yeah.
Wonderful work.
Yeah, it was the when He-Man met Ram Man, and then when
I am Ram
Cyclops.
I ram people with my head. I will ram you.
Yep.
No, Ram Man, do not ram me. I am your friend. You are not my friend. I'm going to ram you now. One second.
Yeah.
Funny thing about those mini comics was, it introduced a lot of kids. It made that bridge between the action figure and the storytelling ability of the minis. It was almost golden age in its approach. A lot of people look at them and they'll say today, oh, well, the writing was stunted and it was this and it was that. But I've always thought that they were classics.
That's a good way to put it, Rusty.
It was very golden age in its approach. It was direct, and it actually it gave kids something a little bit extra. It was that vitamin. It's that vitamin pill. In other words, it was a little extra.
There was an interview. A guy did an interview with me a long time ago, and he was very disappointed. I was a lawyer. I mean, he was a guy who is well into his adulthood, but he was very worshipful. I tried to disabuse him of that. And when he asked me about all my influences and all of the mythological things that I pulled together, no, I just pulled it out of my ass. I was trying to pay the rent. And then I found an interview he had done with Don Bluth, who had done the kind of storybook versions that preceded the comic book stuff. And there were about 4 of those that were in the earliest He-Man. And he asked basically the same question, and Gluth gives him basically the same answer.
Nice. Well,
but I did have Tex. I had Mark Texeira.
What are some of the ways that do you guys still go to cons? Do you guys still make appearances and have tables and whatnot?
Well, there's a worldwide pandemic currently.
Well, there's true, very true. But I mean, is it still? That's what I'm trying to get a feel for, because some cons are starting to slowly pop up, but they're of course you're almost like sitting behind plastic and you have mask on, and it's not a con.
I have 2 grandchildren who are too young to be vaccinated, so I don't want to take the risk of picking up and carrying something, even if I'm not infected or sick.
Oh, I definitely respect that. Yeah. Most definitely. Understandable.
Yeah.
I've been to a few this summer.
Pay me now to come.
It's
I've been to a few. Some were masked, some were not.
Right. I still, in the beginning of this year, my wife and I, tail end of last year, beginning of this year, when everything was really starting to come up, unfortunately had to take care of and go to a couple of funerals. Each of her grandparents within a couple months of each other. And at the time we were in Colorado and just fixing to move to Washington State. Colorado was in some complete lockdown at the time. I go over to the East Coast and the jacuzzi's open, the pool's open, the bar's open, nobody's in a mask. And I went, what happened here? Did I time travel on the plane? Because I'm in pre-pandemic mode here, but a few hours ago on the West Coast, I'm in complete lockdown, almost mask in the house kind of thing. It's amazing how the differences from coast to coast were at that time.
Mm-hmm. I had to give up doing appearances. It was just, aside from the fact that it was getting to be too hard, when the show started coming back, all the promoters were asking me, are you going to wear a mask? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And I usually, I'm very animated when I do shows. So I jump up and I'm throwing things at people and I'm, hugging and, we're throwing cards at people and fooling around and stuff. And I couldn't do any of that at all. So I said, you know what? If I can't be me, I'm just not going to go. And I kind of dropped it.
See,
I had one show come up to me and say, as long as people sign a waiver. And I'm like, yeah, I could just see that now.
Yeah.
People are going to stand in line to sign a waiver for my dumb ass behind a table. I said, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
See,
I said, maybe my mom will sign. That's about it.
we're about a year and a half into this now, and I haven't been to a con in a year and a half. I'll venture to airports when I have to. But other than that, I don't do any gatherings or public events or anything.
Yeah, right. And I run or co-run an event in Ann Arbor, Michigan called the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival, mostly oriented toward younger readers.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it every June, but not this year and not last year. And we're hoping that we'll be able to do it next June.
I'm debating. Tomorrow is the fourth or fifth annual. I think it's the fourth annual Batman deal for Adam West in Walla Walla, because tomorrow is his birthday. So he was born in Walla Walla, Washington. So they have an event now, and they say it's still on, but I haven't heard much more about it than that. So I'm trying to see if I'm going to venture out for that or not. But that'll be the first comic anything I've done for the last year and a half.
Yeah. Hey Gary, what song was I going to sing?
June's busting out all over it.
No. You have to listen to what Kevin was saying.
Oh.
So you weren't listening. Okay. No, it's not, everything reminds me of a song. So all you have to do is say Walla Walla, Washington, and now Gary knows. The song from Pogo, the
Swallow, Swallow, Boston Charlie.
Walla Walla, Wash in Kalamazoo.
Yeah.
Norris freezing on the trolley, swallow dollar cauliflower. Pogo is. I mean, do you guys even know Pogo, the comic strip?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fine. It's because I saw. Okay, I'm not going to name the strip because I don't do bad mouthing. Okay.
We don't either, so that's fair enough.
So I was kind of. I was introduced to these people who did a podcast on comic strips, and I was listening, and had some interesting things to say, and they were talking about some of their favorite strips, and they talked about a current strip that I read every day. I get my comics online, and it's funny, but it is not what you would call well drawn by any version.
Stick figure cinema.
Yeah.
Of well, no. You should look at Matt Fiesel's Cynical Man and see how unbelievably animated and rich and full work done with stick figures.
I've heard a little bit about that. Yeah,
Matt is tremendous. But I like all sorts of comics drawing, all sorts of cartooning, from from realistic to Bigfoot to whatever to this or that. But this is like not even a style, okay? and they were identifying it as like one of their favorite comics ever. And I just don't understand sometimes. So when I think of people who are choosing something like that when they have Walt Kelly and they have George Harriman and whoever else to choose from, you take even a middling kind of comic like Oh, there you go. There's Matt's work. You should see some continuity pages if you can, because you'll get more of a sense of what he does.
There's another one that's out there that's a riff on comics, and it's Frank Forty. And Frank Forty was the editor of Heavy Metal Magazine for a number of years, and his take is it's a superhero group. I have to think of the name of it in a second, and you can tell which different person he's kind of messing with. But their superpowers are horrible. It's just ragtag bunch of guys and gals that go around, and it's not really even a superpower that they have. It's just, I'll have to see if I can dig one up and send it to you guys. You both get a chuckle out of it.
Coming up with superpowers is really a lot of fun. I was talking with some people here in town who they actually do they do cosplay for charity. They're wonderful, wonderful people. They go to hospitals, talk with kids, and all of that stuff. And one of the leaders of the group was talking about a comics idea that they would want to create characters to cosplay as, and have a comic and all of that. And they have this basic stuff, and it's like, yeah, there's ideas here, but ideas aren't stories, and when you need to have characters with different superpowers and how they balance out and all of that, and you want something that hasn't been seen before. I mean, you want to be, ideally you're Steve Ditko, and on a day when you're just yawning through the day, you come up with the poorly named but really interesting visually Speedball, right? Ditko was always throwing this stuff off, he did an anthology story for DC that was called EM, the Energy Monster. And the Energy Monster took form by if it entered the road, it would then rise up as asphalt, and it was really cool.
It's I think great artists are like great comedians. You never shut them off. They can never. There's no off switch on them. They're constantly, the mind's still burning all the time. It never shuts down.
Yeah, which reminds me of the line I now give to people who ask, where do you get your ideas? I say, if you have a certain cast of mind, ideas are all over the place. The hard part is telling the good ones from the bad ones.
Right.
And I used to do that for Gary. I used to tell him which of his ideas were bad ones.
What I say is, that's not the question. The question is, how do I shut off the constant explosion of ideas to focus on one long enough to turn it into something that's a finished product rather than just an idea? Because ideas ain't worth shit. Everybody has ideas. People have ideas in the shower all the time. But taking that idea, which is the spark, and that's why I hate when people always come up to me and say, I've got this great idea. Why don't you write it for me?
Mark Evanier did this entire column on doing that.
So the idea is nothing. The idea is just a seed.
Right.
And then turning that seed into a great big tree is going to be something that's going to require lots of time and effort, and that's the important part.
Yes, I agree, and I wholeheartedly give every credit to the idea side of what Inked became and has become to my wife, because she's the one that came up and said that I should build a better mousetrap, and she's the one that said, well, you have the skill set for it, just go out and do it, and it was that little bit of a push, that little bit of a nudge. Sometimes you can take somebody's good idea, and with a little bit of a push and a nudge to it, it can spark into something. So
one of my dear friends was Rich.
Go ahead. Sorry, Russ.
I was just going to say, one of my dear friends was Rich Buckler. God bless him. And we did a lot of work together, and we did stuff over the years. And he used to say, there's ideas under every rock. Are you strong enough to pick one up? I always thought that was kind of a cool thing. Kind of weird, but kind of cool. He was that kind of a guy. When he made the transition from comics to doing all of those weird underground paintings that were showing all over the world, I was like, I was totally freaked out. I'm like, Rich, this is very ambitious, eyeballs melting and pictures of a girl and it keeps tilting and on and on and on. It's like, yeah, I just had a gallery showing in France and sold one of them for 20,000, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good transition then.
It is. It's a good follow-up career.
Yeah. Well, he had a knack for being. This is something that Kevin and I talked about once before. I love it when people say, "I'm a comic artist." No, you're an artist that does comic work, and then you may get a logo job next. You may get a trading card job next. You're not a comic writer. You're a writer, and you may be getting a different form each time, like a different assignment each time. Rich was one of those guys that was just a utility artist. He could work on a label for a food company one day and work on something adult the next, and then draw a baseball card for Tops, and then comics. And for him, it was just wake up in the morning, look at his schedule, pencil to paper, go to bed, wake up the next day, rinse and repeat for months. And it meant nothing to him. Like it was, it's just art, in other words.
When I took a break from it for several years. And when I did, that's when I had my kids, and Dad was always the human Xerox. I can't tell you how many different things I've ripped off in my life that I've drawn for them. Can you draw a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle in a Stormtrooper outfit, fighting Godzilla, on the planet, whatever. It was just all these different things they would just mash together and expect, it to come out just exactly as they had it in their head. They wanted to see it on paper.
Oh, we do that at our show in Ann Arbor. We have a lot of workshops and events and things like that. And we have like 2 artists at pads, on easels, and the kids will shout out something like you just described. Mutant Ninja Turtles in Stormtrooper outfits doing a lot on the moon with blah blah blah. Then the 2 artists have 3 minutes to draw that.
Oh, there you go.
It's always fun.
We vote by applause who did the best job.
We did that at the Vermont Comic Con, and somebody yelled out something like, "The alien on a beach, sipping like a drink from a coconut." And I looked at the page in front of me, and I was like, "Okay, no, I'm sorry. The other person won. I'm out of here."
That's a great image.
It was very funny, but I couldn't imagine doing it in 3 minutes in front of like 50 people, like shouting. And I'm like, here I am. I'm drawing the coconut, and I'm putting too much detail into the hair, quote unquote, on the coconut, and then the straw. And the other guy's got this giant thing all put together that looked like it could have been the cover of like Mad Magazine. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. If it takes me 5 minutes to draw a coconut with a straw, something's wrong with me. Yeah. Right. So, listen, I got something that I want to ask you guys. I started when I first started out. I started in the 70s, and through people like Rich and Stan, I had gotten my first jobs, and I felt like there was more of a brotherhood, or there was more of a friendship with art with the creators back then. How do you feel about the way the relationships were back then? Because you two have a strong relationship, both work and friends, compared to what you see today in the industry.
I don't see anything in the industry. I don't know anything about the industry today. I don't read comics. I don't. What I know about the industry is what I read on Facebook. Yeah. And I don't read a lot of it. So to me, it's like people asking me, and it happens. How do you get into comics? I said, I don't know. I can tell you how you did it in 1980, but that's not going to do you any good at all. Right. So I don't know the industry today at all.
Well, the answer, Gary, is tell them to do a webcomic and hope people look at it.
That's funny that you say that, because I haven't read a comic from either of the big guys like Marvel, DC, Image since about 2000. The only comics I really buy, if I don't buy older ones, I buy blanks, blank covers, and I'll donate them after I get done. And that's about it. I personally feel like they went from pinup covers to like junky insides. I don't see anything moving. Everything's stagnant and going backwards. That's why they keep copying the old storylines.
I'll read if somebody's work I like, and maybe even somebody I'm personally friends with does something interesting, then I'll do it. For instance, Steve Harris worked on a series at DC called Michael Cray.
Mm-hmm.
It was 6 issues of an alternative universe where the DC heroes were monsters. Aquaman is a villainous monster, and this guy's job is to hunt them down and kill them.
Okay.
And it was terrific. But I wouldn't have looked at it if it wasn't that it was Steve Harris.
Right.
And then there was a few years earlier, a woman I've never met, but who I was friendly with on Facebook and whose work I enjoyed, named Renee DeLiz, did a Wonder Woman, 1940s feeling Wonder Woman series, and it was great. It was really wonderful. It was something that I felt comfortable giving to middle schoolers. Mm-hmm. So I read that. So to say I don't read comics is not quite accurate, but it's very, very targeted, and it's based on something comes to my attention by somebody I like, and maybe it's from DC, maybe it's from Marvel, but I'll take a look. But in general, it's not 9 years old with my stack of comics.
Yeah.
It was
or
kind
later
of
on my stack of comics that you didn't.
Later on, it was Dan's stack of comics.
It was similar to similar to the same answer that Eastman gave a few episodes ago. Was that he has a pool stack.
Well, you had him
really,
on for us.
You're all on the same list. I just happened to catch him before it. Now he had we had him scheduled for a year ago, and then his schedule got scrubbed. And then out of the blue, his person contacted us and said, "Hey, his schedule's back on again. If you'd like to, if you'd still like to have him on." So yeah, it took about a year in rotation because he scrubbed everything.
Person.
For me,
my person will get in touch. That's never happened.
My people
I've never had that person.
For me, I find that I don't really care for the maturity that they brought to comics. It's like overly mature, overly political.
I'm not gonna answer that.
I that's what turned me off.
I'm sorry. If it's good, it's good. And I'm not gonna bitch and whine about it being some kind of comic that I don't approve of. If it's good, it's good. And if it's well done, it's well done. And if comics want to address serious issues, they've always done that. So
Stan used to do that, and he'd get the label pulled off.
I'm not just talking about
no, I'm just talking about anybody, right?
The medium grows out of political cartoons. Comes out of Thomas Nast. This is a critical medium as much as it's anything else. It's many other things, but it's that too. Well,
but one of the things you said, Rusty, that I think that you were getting at, I hear people talk about superheroes for adults, and I say, "Oh, come on, you're kidding me." There've been some that have been done that have been really, really good, right? But for the most part, it really is just people kidding themselves that stuff that's intended for people under the age of 12 to 14 to help them get a sense of a sort of in a heightened alternate reality, see what it's like to be an adult.
Well,
one of the things to do with it.
Well, the other thing too, to me, is the fact that there's different strokes for different folks. There's a whole different gambit of audiences out there, and a particular book may not be pleasing to all of them. Yes, it will have its select following, and that's just take it or leave it kind of thing. It's an art medium, And when I say art, I mean writing and visual.
And
it is a medium.
It can address anything. It's a technique, and as you say, a medium, and If you can do X, Y, and Z well, there it is. It's magic.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what. If I don't like X, Y, and Z, there's a good likelihood I won't look at it. But there's also a possibility if you did it really well and I catch a glimpse of it, that even though it's not my thing, I see it and I go, whoa, okay, this is good. I like this. This is good. It's not my thing. It's not even my position, or it's not my beliefs. It's not anything. This is good. I like this.
Yeah, no, I've had that experience a lot where I say, oh, this is really good and well done, but I absolutely am not interested in seeing any more of it. I
like this, but I've seen
an issue of Cerebus.
Yeah,
there's
everybody said how good it was, and
I would like to get your feel on some. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I do want to get your feel on some stuff. Kind of hang around and watch because I split the previews in half. I had the first 3 previews, and then we'll have the last 3 previews after the interview. Just kind of hang out in the green room and see what you think about these 3 indie books that I'm fixing to show you. They're all very unique in their styles, and just hit me up later with an IM or something and say, hey, yeah, this looks good.
Can I just say just one quick thing about my comic book reading these days? It is primarily books published by trade book publishers in original book format, serial comics, monthly comics, any of that stuff. I hardly ever read them except when I hear something good and they're collected, like Saga, for instance, or the Matt Fraction and Steve Lieber Jimmy Olsen miniseries, which was
I heard about that one.
From the library, I'm there. But largely, it's both adult and young readers stuff that are published by the comics divisions of Macmillan and Random House and places
one of them is very similar to that. It's a hardbound edition, volume 2, of a book that's more of a children's story than anything else. So
cool.
Yeah, we have a whole gamut of things.
You want us to look at these after the show, right? And just get in touch with you sometime.
You want us to sit here and watch your comic book stuff?
No,
for a moment, I thought that you wanted me to look at these 3 things while we're doing this.
Well, what's going to happen? No,
instant feedback, and
we do a previews of all. Let me back up a step. The other part of the business, this show is kind of a byproduct of being around and in the industry, because we kind of got talked into doing this. Myself and Brandon, the regular co-host that comes in, and Rusty's a good friend of mine. He jumped in here to help out as a co-host for this episode. Rusty and I have gotten to know each other really well and really ping off each other really well. And this show is a byproduct of the business, and the business is Inked Marketing. And we go out and we help creators get their books published through crowdfunding mediums. And we've done 10 new creators, green as grass, all over the world. They've come to us and they've gotten published. Some kids straight out of the Kubrick school, some people from other countries that go through, and we help them get funded. The other part of it is we have a lot of people that have been in the business like you guys for many years, and we are a group of creators that help creators. So they come to us and we take all the burden of getting the crowdfunding stuff going, and they get back to creating. That's part of it. Well, so this is a mix. We have in this set coming out, we do about 6 to 8 books or 6 to 8 projects a month, and we show them in previews on this podcast. So you guys are part of what we call the Titans of Industry series. And this is the people that have, well, that's what we say. You guys have been there, done that. Exactly. And that's what we do. We talk to the guys that and this will hopefully inspire the people that are new and coming up in the industry. And here's kind of the quick little picture of it. But this is what it is. It's the Titans of Industry series. And that helps kind of get them engaged. And then we have people that their books go from an indie crowdfunding thing that just gets delivered out there to, like, I'll show you this one real quick. This is Justin Gray's book, and Justin was in the business, like I told you, with Jonah Hex. Him and his crowdfunding book got picked up by Blue Juice, the publisher, and now it's going to be available in comic stores. So that can happen as well. So in the show, at the beginning and sometimes the end, we just do some previews to show people books that are out there that creators are doing right now. That's what I was going to say. I kind of split the previews this time because I knew you were running a little bit late, so I put part of the previews up front and the rest of the previews are in the back. So that's what I was saying. Just kind of stick around the green room in the background when I kick off in a minute and just watch the previews, because they're in animation form. We actually take the 2D comic and turn it into a 15 or 30-second promo video. An animation.
Asking me to read 3 or 4 comics.
Oh no!
in the next 15 minutes.
No. It's just to kind of get a general feel. Yeah.
Of inspiring creators and readers. I just noticed over my head, in back of my head actually, the collected edition of Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and that's a really inspirational.
Okay.
Great plot to that one.
Yeah, that's
very great.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about your careers and about pinging off of each other over the years. And it's just a delight for us to see you guys still in contact with each other and still, after all this time.
Well, after tonight, amazing. I'm not so sure.
You ruined everything, Mishkin.
That was it. Yeah, I'm over and done with. Well, thank you guys again. Come on anytime.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us on.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Pleasure meeting both of you, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Likewise. And Rusty, I'm sure we've been in the same room in the same con any number of times. But
I've started doing appearances like in late 70s, and I just like a couple of years would go by, I would do nothing, and then all of a sudden somebody would contact me and they'd be like, "You want to do something?" And I'd be like, "Oh, damn it. All right, I'll start." And then it would never stop. And then it would be like, "Oh, it's off again." And I'd be like, to my wife, I'd be like, "Oh my God, thank you. I'm done. I can relax. I got my feet up." And then like 6 months later, "Hey, you want to come up to Plattsburgh, New York? You want to come out to Detroit? You want to go to California?" Oh, damn it. All right. And then it would be more time. So this is my swan song. I had to stop. The virus came along just at the time when I said I can't do it anymore.
We were both scheduled for one that was about to happen right about now in Great Lakes, in Finger Lakes. You and I were both scheduled for the Finger Lakes Con.
I did that one for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Joey Gates, right?
Right. And I think you were scheduled for the one that just got canceled.
Yeah. So
is I.
It's a shame, too, because he has a great show, but it had a little bit of a hard following where he was the first time. They did it at a mall, and the mall kind of messed around with him. There are some promoters that are just fantastic. They bend over backwards to give the fans a beautiful experience. And then there are others that are just commercial to the core. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
He's a nice kid. He really is, and I really enjoy it. I would have done his show even if I had my arm hanging by a vein. I would have showed up. But anyway, maybe sometime in the future.
Maybe
it'll happen again. I'll get the call and I'll be like, "Damn it." And that'll be the end of that. But thank you guys for coming on. I super appreciated it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
It was really
great
nice
meeting both of you. I followed your work and loved every bit of it. So
good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Now let's watch the previews.
Yes. Let's move right along.
Good night.
Good night. Take it easy.
All right. I'm going to kind of run through the last bit of these previews real quick, and then we'll be off. And again, as I say, this is part of we're going to cover the last bit, the last 3 works that we have up in preview mode. And let's go off to the first one. Is going to be the one I was kind of telling Dan about, which is Fox and Willow. And Fox and Willow, this is a volume 2 hardback version book, and we were able to get this one together for them, and it won a Projects We Love for Kickstarter right out of the gate. So let me show you a quick video on a little bit more on Fox and Willow.
Sometimes a silent song is the most poignant. Continuing their journey to lift Gideon's curse, Willow and her fox companion have been tasked with escorting Princess Nuala to be wed to a prince from another kingdom. But despite Nuala's hopes of making a joyful union, not all is what it seems between the prince and his betrothed. When his mistress, a barefoot woman without a tongue appears. A bond of friendship grows between the two ladies, even as a storm brews on the horizon. Written by Alison Pang and illustrated by Irma Amo Ahmed, Fox and Willow debuted in April 2012 and has maintained a strong fan base ever since, following the runaway princess Willow and her mischievous fox spirit companion, Gideon.
And that book just started, and it's close to funding. It's about 82 or 83% out there right now. The next one up that just launched just a couple days ago is Outlier World Forge, and you might see or might recognize a little bit of Bart Sears' work there off to the left. And Bart did one of the covers on that, and let's hear a little bit more about Outlier.
Rafe Gadara stood witness when time began. As the Concordance, he bore record when the framework of our physical world was designed and set in motion. But when ignorance and ambition fractured his people into warring factions, he refused to take a side, an outlier. Instead, he fled into our reality, taking with him secret knowledge. Hidden for millennia among humanity, he has walked alongside us as drifter, recluse, and watcher, living countless lives on the fringe. Now, one man stands on the brink of a discovery that could unmake everything, and old foes are closer than ever. Rafe is forced into the open, but will he be able to use his knowledge to stop unseen powers from rewriting reality, or will he be the catalyst that sets it in motion?
Outlier, World Forge. The stakes for reality have never been higher. The campaign launches September 15th. Like, share, and watch for more updates.
Next one up is Shadow's Daughter, and Shadow's Daughter is coming soon. It will be here at the end of this month, and we're really looking forward to this one. This is a book that's put together in Australia, but will also be available because there's U.S. printers that will be printing this book, so you don't have to pay the arm and a leg to try to get it shipped over here. So that one we're really excited about. And here is a little bit more on Shadow's Daughter. So make sure you're going to pick that one up. And last but not least, this one again will be the 30th or so, the end of this month. PTSD. This is another book that's going to be dealing with, of course, that topic itself. And this is all about what happens in one afternoon. So a whole sequential book wrapped around that story. Multiple issues, but again, that's going to be released tail end of this month. We're still working on the video for that one, so it's not quite out yet. But you're definitely going to want to take a look at it. We'll have that one up and running for next episode for sure. And you can make sure that you pick up all of these different ones. Just make sure that you head over to our site and go to inked.marketing, swing by the gallery, click on Live Now, and you can go ahead and see all the different things that are coming up or that are live, of course. And you can also click on some of the previous episodes of Comic Roddery, and you can see some of the other different interviews that have taken place. And as always, I want to make sure that you know that anytime you have any questions about anything, you can always just go ahead and drop us a line, swing by the site, and let us know if you have a question about something. And for more episodes like this one and more, make sure you go here.
For more fun-filled episodes, come visit our website, www.comicroddery.com.